She was sitting on another man's lap, live on camera, laughing, drinking, and kissing him like I never existed. The worst part? It wasn't just a private betrayal. She broadcasted it to hundreds of people, with the donation alerts pinging in the background as strangers typed "real love" in the chat. I just sat there in the dark, my phone buzzing nonstop with links from friends and coworkers. My entire life felt like it was crumbling in front of me, but I didn't scream, I didn't call her, I didn't make a scene. Instead, I hit save on every single video, screenshot the donations, and started collecting evidence. If she thought this was entertainment, she was about to learn how wrong she was. Before I go any deeper, if you like stories of revenge, betrayal, and people finally getting what they deserve, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I promise, it only gets darker from here. The betrayal itself was brutal enough, but the way she made it into a show, that cut deeper than anything. My wife, the person I trusted more than anyone, chose to humiliate me in front of a live audience, complete with flashy overlays and donations rolling in like it was some kind of twisted fundraiser. People always ask me, how did you not lose your mind? How did you not storm in there and throw everything away in one violent outburst? The truth is, I thought about it. In that moment, rage bubbled up in my chest like nothing I'd ever felt before. But then a colder thought took over. If I explode, she wins. She'll paint me as the crazy husband, and suddenly her betrayal turns into her sympathy story. No, that wasn't going to happen. Instead, I started working in silence. Every notification on her stream became a receipt in my archive. Every viewer laughing at my expense became another reason to keep going. I noticed something interesting. The donations weren't just random. Some were from business accounts, even tied to companies. That was the first clue that this was bigger than just cheating. Something smelled off, and I was going to find out what. I didn't sleep that night. I kept rewatching the clips, not because I wanted to torture myself, but because I wanted to see what everyone else might miss. Details, timing, where they were, who else was around. And that's when I noticed her phone screen in the reflection of a mirror behind them. A list of messages, contracts, payments, my name, my company's LLC. That's when the anger transformed into something sharper. This wasn't just about betrayal anymore. This was fraud. And fraud, that's something you can destroy someone with without ever raising your voice. By sunrise, I had already sent the first few clips to a secure folder, called a lawyer friend of mine, and explained only the basics. I need to know how much trouble someone can get into for using my company information without consent. He paused, then asked, who's using it? I swallowed hard and said, my wife. The silence on the other end told me everything. He said one thing before hanging up. Don't say a word to her. Play dumb. Collect everything. I'll call you tomorrow. And that's exactly what I did. I walked into the kitchen later that morning like nothing had happened. She came home hungover, still smelling like someone else's cologne, and gave me a fake smile. I gave one back. On the surface, I was calm. But inside, I had already started the countdown. That was the night my marriage ended. But it was also the night my revenge began. The next morning, the sun came up like nothing had changed, but for me everything was different. I sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee I could barely taste, while she stumbled in, sunglasses on, muttering something about a late-night collab. She didn't even try to hide it. Maybe she thought I was too weak to do anything. Maybe she thought the whole world laughing at me meant I'd stay quiet. She was half right, I was quiet. But not for the reason she thought. I kept my answers short, almost robotic. How was it? Fun. Busy. Okay. Meanwhile, my phone in my pocket buzzed with another message from my lawyer friend. Save everything. Don't confront her yet. Trust me, that silence became my weapon. She thought my calm meant I was numb, defeated. But what I was really doing was taking notes. Every word she said, every excuse, every receipt she tossed on the counter without thinking. All of it went into a neat little folder on my computer. By day, I played the role of the supportive husband. I cooked dinner. I asked about her content schedule. I even pretended to care about the stream highlights she bragged about. But at night, when she went off to plan shoots or stayed glued to her phone, I was digging. I spent hours scrubbing through her live replays frame by frame, freezing moments most people would ignore. I noticed names in her chat that weren't random fans. They were company reps using business accounts to drop donations. Some of those same names showed up in email chains connected to my LLC. That was the moment my stomach dropped. She wasn't just humiliating me. She was setting me up financially. Imagine waking up one day and realizing the person sharing your bed has been slowly building a trap with your own name written all over it. Tax IDs, contracts, signatures, all linked back to me. If the hammer came down, I'd be the one paying the price, not her. That realization burned deeper than the cheating itself that I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw it all in her face right then and there. But I remembered my lawyer's words, "Don't say a word." So I swallowed that fire and let it fuel me quietly. Instead of confronting her, I smiled more. I asked her if she needed help setting up lights for her next stream. I even offered to pick up her favorite snacks for long, content nights. Every fake smile I gave her was another brick in the wall I was building around her. She had no idea. I was spending my nights on encrypted calls, sharing screenshots and contracts with someone who knew exactly how to dismantle her business. She had no idea that I already had backups on hard drives, cloud storage, even a private safe at a buddy's place. One night, she left her laptop open on the counter when she ran upstairs to take a call. I walked past it slowly, careful not to touch anything. But the screen was lit, and what I saw made my heart pound. A spreadsheet, payouts, brand deals, all routed through my LLC. Tens of thousands of dollars. And next to my company name, her manager's signature. Not hers. His. That was the final confirmation I needed. This wasn't just her betrayal. It was a conspiracy. When she came back downstairs, she looked at me suspiciously. Maybe she caught a glimpse of my face. Maybe she sensed I knew more than I let on. But I just smiled and said, "Want me to order pizza?" She smirked, thought she had me wrapped around her finger, and said, "Sure, you're the best." That night, while she laughed upstairs on another call, I sat in my car, phone pressed to my ear, whispering to my lawyer, "It's worse than we thought. They're using my company for everything. I need to protect myself, and I need to bury her with the truth." The silence wasn't weakness. It was the calm before the storm. Long before the live stream that shattered everything, the warning signs were already there. At first, they were small, almost harmless. She started filming silly little videos around the house, pranks, makeup routines, daily vlogs. I thought it was cute. I even held the camera for her a few times. I didn't know I was helping build the stage for my own humiliation. When her audience started to grow, her behavior shifted. Suddenly, our private moments weren't private anymore. A simple dinner turned into a date night vlog. A disagreement about bills somehow became funny couple drama for her channel. And every time I expressed discomfort, she'd brush it off with, "Relax, it's just content." People love authenticity. But it didn't feel like authenticity. It felt like exposure. The first time she really crossed the line was during a live stream where she joked about my salary compared to hers. She laughed about how I was basically the intern in the relationship, while donations poured in from people typing "Queen Energy" and "Dump him." I laughed it off in the moment, but inside, it stung. What she called entertainment, I called disrespect. Still, I told myself not to overreact. Everyone has flaws, right? Maybe I was being too sensitive. That's what I kept repeating. Even as the jokes got sharper, the pranks more humiliating, and the line between her online persona and our real life blurred until I couldn't tell the difference. She once filmed me half asleep on the couch, snoring, then uploaded it with the caption, "Living with a man-child." It got thousands of views. Friends and coworkers sent me the clip, laughing. I forced a smile, pretending I was in on the joke. But deep down, I felt something snapping. Looking back, it's almost like she was testing me, pushing the boundaries, seeing how far she could go before I pushed back. And when I didn't, she just went further. By the time she started calling herself an influencer, she had a manager, brand deals, and a growing ego. Our relationship became less about us and more about her image. She cared more about analytics than anniversaries, more about sponsorships than conversations. And every time I tried to talk about it, she'd twist it into content. "Look at my jealous husband, guys. Isn't he hilarious?" I should have seen it for what it was, control. She wasn't just documenting our life, she was rewriting it. Every clip, every caption, every live stream built a version of me I didn't recognize. Weak, boring, disposable. And the scariest part? People believed it. Strangers in her comments acted like they knew me, like they had the right to judge me. They told her she could do better. They called me dead weight. And she didn't defend me. She liked their comments. That's when I realized this wasn't just about views or content. She was building an exit strategy live in front of an audience, turning me into the villain so she could play the hero. I kept quiet, pretending to laugh, pretending to support her career, but inside, I knew. Every time she pointed the camera at me, every time she turned a private jab into a public joke, I understood. She wasn't just creating content. She was dismantling me, piece by piece, until there was nothing left to protect. What I didn't realize then was that all those little clips, all those jokes at my expense, would later serve as proof. Proof that she had been planning her betrayal long before the night she broadcasted it to the world. That I should have walked away then. But I didn't. And because of that, I gave her the rope she'd eventually use to hang herself. It started with a simple notification. One afternoon, I got an email from a payment processor tied to my company's LLC, a company I barely touched anymore. At first, I thought it was spam. But when I opened it, my stomach tightened. It was a receipt for a deposit, not into my account, but into hers. And the contract attached? Signed under my company's name. I stared at the screen for a long time, my pulse racing. She hadn't asked me. She hadn't even mentioned it. Yet there it was, my business identity being used like a prop in her growing empire. That night, while she was upstairs filming, I went into the old filing cabinet where I kept all my business records. I pulled out the original documents, tax forms, registration papers, my EIN. Everything was legitimate, clean. But the new contracts she was signing? They were using all of that. With my signature forged at the bottom. I felt my hands tremble. This wasn't just betrayal anymore. This was identity theft. The next day, I decided to test something. I casually asked her how her brand deals were going, pretending to be interested. She smirked, waved her phone around, and said, "Better than ever. Honestly, you wouldn't understand the numbers." Then she quickly locked her screen and tucked it away. That one move confirmed my suspicion. She was hiding something big. Later that week, I started watching her streams more carefully. Not for the content, but for the patterns. And sure enough, I noticed her casually name-dropping her company when discussing sponsorships. My company, my name. It was subtle, but she had built her whole platform on the foundation of my paperwork. She wasn't just risking her reputation. She was risking my freedom. If taxes weren't filed correctly, if the contracts fell apart, the law wouldn't knock on her door. It would come straight to me. That realization kept me awake at night. I'd lie there next to her, listening to her breathe, and wonder, was she really so arrogant she thought she'd never get caught? Or was this all part of a bigger plan to dump everything on me when it eventually collapsed? I started pulling every statement I could. Bank records, emails, PayPal transfers, brand invoices. Slowly, the puzzle came together, and it looked worse with every piece. Tens of thousands of dollars had already moved under my name. My identity wasn't just a convenience. It was the shield she was hiding behind while she played the role of influencer queen. One evening, I confronted her in the smallest way possible, a test. I asked why a certain company emailed me instead of her. She froze, just for a second, then forced a laugh. "Oh, babe, that's just business stuff. You wouldn't get it." Then she leaned in, kissed my cheek, and added, "Don't worry, I've got it all under control." But the way she said it sent a chill down my spine. She wasn't trying to explain. She was dismissing me, as if I were already irrelevant. That was the night I realized. She wasn't planning to stop. She was planning to expand. I saved every document, every contract, every receipt. I made digital copies and hid them where she'd never find them. She thought she was the puppet master, but every move she made was just more evidence for me. And as much as it tore me apart, I smiled at her the next morning like nothing was wrong. She thought I was blind, but in reality, I was watching her more closely than ever, because the deeper I dug, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. This was about survival. I knew that simply collecting old documents wasn't enough. If I wanted to expose her, I needed proof that was undeniable, something so clear that no lawyer or sponsor could spin it. And the best way to get that proof? Set a trap. A friend of mine works in marketing, handling small influencer campaigns. I explained the situation in vague terms, not naming her, just saying someone was using my company's info illegally. He leaned back in his chair and said, "If she's really signing under your LLC, then let's bait her. We'll send an offer and see who puts their name on the dotted line." That was the plan. A fake brand deal, crafted to look real enough to tempt her. We set up a professional-looking email, designed a contract, even made a mock website for the brand. All that was left was to send the bait to her business email, the same one tied to my LLC without my consent. When the email went out, I waited like a hunter waiting for his prey. For 2 days, there was nothing. She carried on as usual, filming, streaming, laughing with that smug confidence she always had. But then, one night, while she thought I was asleep, I heard the faint clicking of her keyboard in bed. She was responding. The next morning, I checked the shared inbox I had secretly mirrored. There it was, her reply, enthusiastic, professional, and absolutely oblivious. She negotiated payment terms, added her manager to the thread, and within hours, sent back the signed contract. And the signature? Not hers. Not mine. Her manager's. Once again, using my company's information. When I saw that file come through, I felt a rush of satisfaction I hadn't felt in months. It wasn't just suspicion anymore. It was hard evidence. A document trail leading directly back to her. But the trap gave me more than just proof of fraud. It also gave me access. Buried in the email chain were forwarded messages, past contracts, payment records, private discussions between her and her manager. And as I scrolled, I found something that twisted the knife even deeper. They weren't just laughing at me behind closed doors. They were planning ways to go viral, off my humiliation. In one message, he suggested staging another accidental live stream moment, something that would make people really root for her. And her reply? Yeah, let's make him look useless. That always kills in the comments. Reading those words felt like being punched in the chest. She wasn't just betraying me. She was manufacturing my downfall as entertainment that I sat in the dark that night, staring at the glow of my laptop screen, every instinct screaming to confront her. To throw the contract in her face, demand answers, demand respect. But I didn't. Not yet, because I realized something. The longer she played her game, the more evidence I collected. Every forged signature, every contract, every cruel little message was another nail in the coffin she was building for herself to I smiled at her the next morning, poured her coffee, and asked if she had any exciting projects coming up. She grinned, proud of herself, completely unaware that the walls were already closing in. The trap had been set, and it worked better than I could have ever imagined. By this point, I had evidence stacked higher than I ever imagined. Fake contracts, forged signatures, private messages mocking me like I was just a character in their twisted show. But evidence alone wasn't enough. If I wanted to take her down and protect myself, I needed to know exactly where I stood legally. I pulled out the one document we both had signed years earlier, the one I had almost forgotten about, our prenuptial agreement. At the time, she had treated it like an annoying formality, rolling her eyes when we sat with the lawyer. But now, it was my potential lifeline. I spread the pages across my desk, scanning line after line until one section made me stop cold. It was a clause about willful infidelity and public humiliation. If either spouse engaged in both, the other gained controlling interest in shared assets. My chest tightened as I reread it. She hadn't just broken that clause, she had obliterated it, live on camera for the world to see. That night, I called my lawyer. I didn't even bother with small talk. I just said, I found something. He asked me to send a picture of the clause, and when he called back, I could hear the grin in his voice. She's finished. Don't confront her yet. Start locking things down. The next morning, I moved like a man on autopilot. I logged into our shared bank accounts, our joint credit lines, even the brokerage account she never cared about until recently. With my lawyer's guidance, I froze what I could and redirected access where possible. Legally, I wasn't stealing. I was protecting myself under the prenup's terms. Meanwhile, she floated around the house like nothing was happening. She was planning her next big live stream, ordering clothes for brand shoots, gossiping on speakerphone with her manager. I kept my expression neutral, nodding, smiling, all while quietly shifting the ground out from under her. The strangest part was how easy it was. She was so distracted by her image, by the constant need for attention, that she didn't even notice the safety net vanishing beneath her feet. One evening, while she bragged about landing another sponsor, I asked her, "Do you ever worry about the legal side of all this?" She laughed, brushing it off like it was the dumbest question in the world. "Babe, no one cares. It's all about the followers and the hype. That's what pays the bills. I nodded, but inside, I thought, those bills are about to come crashing down on you by the end of that week. My lawyer and I had a strategy. We weren't going to just hit her with one claim. We were going to surround her from every angle: breach of contract, fraud, misuse of my LLC. And, thanks to the prenup, a devastating financial shift in my favor, I started keeping a calm diary of events, noting every suspicious call, every time she mentioned money, every purchase made with joint funds. It wasn't emotional anymore. It was tactical. When she kissed me goodnight that Friday, whispering about how things were only getting bigger from here, I almost laughed. She had no idea just how right she was, because the stage was set. The finances were frozen. The prenup was activated. And the next act of her little show would be the one where she lost everything. Why now? I wasn't just reacting. I was planning. The evidence, the prenup, the frozen accounts, it was all solid. But if I wanted this to stick, if I wanted her to feel the weight of what she'd done, it had to be public. The same way she had humiliated me live, I would expose her with the truth in front of her audience. The first step was finding the right outlet. I didn't want a messy social media rant. That would only make me look bitter. I needed credibility. So, I reached out anonymously to an investigative journalist I'd followed for years, someone known for exposing influencer scams and shady online businesses. When I first contacted him, I kept it vague. I have documents showing identity misuse and fraud involving a mid-level influencer. He responded within hours, asking for proof. I sent a few carefully chosen screenshots and one forged contract. His reply came instantly. This is real. We need to talk. We set up a secure video call, and for the first time in months, I felt like someone was firmly on my side. I laid it all out. The live stream humiliation, the forged contracts, the fake signatures, the brand trap. He leaned forward, eyes sharp, and said, "If even half of this checks out, she's finished." That night, while she laughed upstairs during a gaming stream, I was in my office, working with a journalist and my lawyer to synchronize everything. We built a timeline. Every fraudulent deal, every forged document, every time she publicly mocked me while cashing checks under my name. It wasn't just a story anymore. It was a case. The plan was simple, but brutal in its elegance. Her biggest live stream yet was scheduled in 2 weeks, with a new sponsor she wouldn't shut up about. That would be the moment. While she played to her audience, contracts would be challenged, claims would be filed, and the journalist would drop the story. Timing was everything. If I struck too early, she'd spin it, play the victim, maybe even delete evidence. But if I struck at the exact moment she was live, surrounded by her own fans and corporate partners, there would be no hiding. No excuses. Just the truth, broadcast in real time. In the meantime, I kept playing the role of the supportive husband. She showed me outfits for her stream, asked my opinion on lighting setups, even bragged about how unstoppable she was becoming. I nodded, smiled, told her she looked amazing. All the while, I knew the trap was seconds away from snapping shut. One night, I walked into the kitchen and found her rehearsing her sponsor pitch out loud. She looked at me and said, "This deal is going to change everything for us." I almost laughed. For us? She had no idea she was practicing lines for the performance that would mark the end of her empire. The days leading up to the event felt surreal. I was calm, colder than I'd ever been. Every time she dismissed me, every time she mocked me, I didn't feel pain anymore. I felt anticipation. She thought she was standing on a throne. She didn't realize the floor beneath her was about to collapse. When the morning of the live stream arrived, I looked at her packing her equipment, her ring light, her makeup kits. She kissed me on the cheek and said, "Wish me luck, babe. This is the big one." I smiled back, my heart steady, and whispered, "Good luck." Because by the time that stream was over, luck was the last thing that could save her. The night of her big stream felt like watching a countdown clock in my head. Every sound in the house carried extra weight. The click of her heels on the hardwood, the hum of her ring light, the excited chatter echoing from her studio as she tested her mic. She thought this was going to be her coronation. For me, it was the beginning of her downfall that I watched from the living room as the stream went live. The viewer count skyrocketed instantly, thousands poured in. She was glowing, smiling, pitching her new sponsor with the kind of energy that only comes when someone believes they're untouchable. But I wasn't watching her. I was watching the notifications on my phone. At the exact moment she launched into her scripted pitch, my lawyer filed the fraud claims. Simultaneously, the journalist published the article, complete with screenshots of forged signatures, fake contracts, and payment trails leading back to her manager. The first sign that something was wrong came in her chat. Comments shifted from praise to confusion. People started typing, "What's this article? Is this real?" Check Twitter. Her smile faltered, just for a second, but she pushed through, trying to ignore it. Then came the second wave. Her sponsor's logo disappeared from the stream overlay, pulled by the brand itself after their legal team got wind of the claims. That moment was brutal and poetic. She froze mid-sentence, blinking at the empty space where her sponsor banner had been. I'll never forget the look in her eyes, the first flicker of panic breaking through her polished mask, and then the knock at the door. Right on cue, a courier arrived, holding a thick envelope with her name on it. She tried to wave him away, flustered, still on camera, but he insisted. The chat went wild as viewers watched her take the envelope with shaking hands. Some laughed, some gasped, some typed, "What's happening?" Inside that envelope were legal documents, notices of investigation, contract disputes, and the prenup clause activation. She didn't open it on stream, of course, but the damage was already done. Her empire wasn't collapsing in secret, it was crumbling live. In front of thousands, she scrambled to keep going, her voice cracking as she tried to change the subject. But the audience wasn't with her anymore. Screenshots of the article flooded the chat. Clips of the courier at her door went viral within minutes. What she thought would be her greatest performance had turned into the beginning of her public unraveling. That I sat there in silence, watching the panic set in. Every fake laugh, every dismissal, every cruel joke she had made at my expense replayed in my head. But this time, I didn't feel pain. I felt justice. By the time she ended the stream abruptly, slamming her laptop shut and storming upstairs, the story had already spread across the internet. Her sponsors were gone, her fans were turning on her, and the walls of the empire she built on lies were finally caving in. She opened the bedroom door, eyes blazing, and hissed, "Did you do this?" I met her gaze calmly and said, "You did this to yourself." The days after her disastrous livestream felt like watching a slow-motion car crash. Everywhere I turned, social media, news sites, even gossip blogs, her name was plastered across headlines. Influencer exposed for fraud. The queen of content or the queen of scams. The same audience that once cheered her now dissected her downfall with brutal precision. Her sponsors vanished overnight. One by one, they issued statements cutting ties, some even demanding repayment of funds. Her streams, once buzzing with thousands, now opened to a flood of angry comments. "Scammer. Liar. You used him." No amount of fake smiles could drown out the rage pouring from the very fans she thought she owned. But the biggest blow didn't come from strangers. It came from the person she trusted most, her so-called manager. Faced with his own legal exposure, he cracked under pressure almost immediately. Within days, my lawyer received a package, copies of emails, signed contracts, and even private messages between them. He was throwing her under the bus to save himself, and the things he revealed? They were worse than I imagined. There were discussions about staging humiliating moments for me just to drive donations. Plans to funnel money through my LLC to avoid taxes. Conversations about milking the divorce for content when the time came. Every message was like another knife, not because I was surprised anymore, but because it confirmed just how calculated she had been. The irony was brutal. She had built her empire on control, on image, on the illusion that she was untouchable. But now, she couldn't control a single thing. The more she tried to spin the story, the worse it got. Clips of her panicked face when the courier handed her the envelope became memes. Screenshots of her forged contracts circulated as evidence. She wasn't trending for her content anymore. She was trending for her lies. Meanwhile, I stayed silent publicly. I didn't need to rant or gloat. The journalist had already laid out the facts. The sponsors had already cut ties. The internet was already tearing apart the persona she had worked so hard to build. Privately, though, I kept moving forward. My lawyer filed motions using the prenup clause. Courts were notified of the fraud. Bank accounts she thought were hers alone froze before her eyes. And when she finally confronted me, screaming, crying, begging, I stayed calm. You wanted an audience, I told her quietly. Now you have one. The final straw came when her manager's confession went public. He admitted everything in exchange for leniency. She had no one left to blame. Not me, not the sponsors, not even him. The empire she built on my name had burned to the ground, and she was standing alone in the ashes. That night, she disappeared into her studio, slamming the door, desperate to salvage what was left. But there was nothing left to salvage. Her viewers didn't want her explanations anymore. They wanted the truth, and they already had IT'd. As I sat downstairs in the quiet, a weight lifted from me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like the punchline of her story. I felt like the author of mine. The collapse was complete, and the stage was clear for my next chapter. In the weeks that followed, the storm finally settled. The legal process took time, but the outcome was never in doubt. With the prenup clause triggered and her fraud laid bare, the court sided with me. The assets she once flaunted as her own were divided in my favor. The contracts tied to my LLC were dissolved, and the liability for her schemes shifted squarely onto her shoulders. That IT wasn't about money for me. It was about freedom. Freedom from the weight of her lies, from the humiliation she had streamed to the world, from the endless cycle of being the punchline in her story. For the first time in years, I woke up in the morning without a knot in my stomach. She, on the other hand, faded quickly. Her fan base dwindled to a fraction of what it had been. The brands that once begged for her attention wanted nothing to do with her name. Even her manager, the one who had enabled everything, had vanished after testifying against her. She had built her entire identity on being adored, and without that spotlight, she was nothing. As for me, I didn't rush to fill the void she left behind. Instead, I took my time rebuilding. I focused on my work, turning my experience into something useful. With the help of a few friends, I started consulting for small creators, teaching them how to protect their businesses, how to safeguard their identities, how to never let someone else use their name the way she used mine. It was strange at first, but the more I shared, the more I healed. Slowly, I rediscovered myself outside of her shadow. I picked up old hobbies, reconnected with friends I had neglected, even started traveling again. For the first time in a long time, life felt like it belonged to me. People sometimes ask if I regret not confronting her earlier, if I regret staying silent while she paraded around, humiliating me in front of strangers. And honestly, no, because silence gave me control. Silence gave me time. And in the end, it gave me victory without ever lowering myself to her level. The night I signed the final divorce papers, I didn't celebrate with a drink or a party. I just sat alone in my living room, smiling to myself. Not because I had destroyed her, but because I had saved myself, and that's the truth. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't shouting louder than the person who hurt you. Sometimes, the best revenge is letting them destroy themselves while you build something better from the ashes. If you've made it this far, thank you for listening to my story. Do you think I did the right thing by staying silent and playing the long game? Or would you have handled it differently if you were in my shoes? Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the next story. Hit that like button and drop a comment below. I really want to hear what you would have done in my place.